Okay, the class comes in, and on the whiteboard, I have this. Bell ringer. What is the difference between pulse and rhythm? 2 minutes while I take attendance. Think about it. Write down your answers on a scratch piece of paper. And then we're going to go over the answers and we're going to discuss it a little bit. And then we're going to have a little bit of a drumming activity for you. So, some of the answers I got back, I'm reading the answers right now. We did our 2 minutes. And some of the students said, well, pulse is like heartbeats. Most of them said, I don't know what the difference is. A lot of crickets in the room, not anything at all. No answer, just blank stares. It's kind of early in the morning. But some of the kids that were in band said, rhythm is what you do with the movement of notes, and pulse is just the steady beat. Okay. So when I'm talking with the students and they bring up the word heartbeat, I say, yes, it's very similar to pulse. And in fact, the heartbeat's steady. So it's always a steady thing that's always happening. Hopefully it's steady. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. When you're running, it can get faster, so music sometimes can get faster too, or the tempo can be faster. But the pulse is the feeling when you're listening to music, when you want to move your head or tap your foot. And also the pulse is what the beats that you're feeling in the music are what the conductor conducts, usually when the conductor is conducting. So sometimes the conductor will conduct in 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes the conductor can conduct in 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And sometimes the conductor can conduct in 2 beats. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So those are the movements. That's the pulse is the movement of time in music. Music moves through time. And it depends on how fast it moves or how slow. We call that tempo. Tempo can be fast. It can be very fast. It can be slow. And on your handout, what I have is some examples of tempo markings. And we're going to explain that a little bit more in a minute. But first, we're going to have an activity with drumming, and we're going to play a pulse. And with the pulse, we're going to do 4 beats, like when I was conducting. We're going to conduct it in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to be going that quick, and we're going to play quarter notes, and these are what they look like. We're going to talk more about notes. So we're going to play 4/4 time, and we're all going to play this together. You're going to hear me. You're going to just copy what I do, and we're going to play it together. So here we go with that. Okay, so this will be on the whiteboard at all times when we're doing this activity, because we're going to demonstrate this with our drums. Everyone's going to be sitting at a circle, and they're each going to have one of these. And what we're going to do is we're all going to play a pulse together, so we can really get a firm understanding of just the pulse. So I will say, just do what I do. When you feel, just join me. When you feel you're secure, play with me. We're going to just keep this going. I'm going to count off. I'm going to say this is how fast we're going to go. 1, and we're going to be in 4 beats, just like when I conducted in 4. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can do that a little faster to get the juices flowing, get some excitement going, see if we can maintain it and stay steady. So I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep that going for a while and see if we can keep that steady. I'll also say, hey, let's do it a little slower. Let's see if we can maintain it at a slow tempo. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And see, and we might have a little bit of trouble getting that all together at a steady tempo and keeping everybody together. Of course, they're 9th graders, so they might be a little bit wise guy-ish. So the next thing we're going to do is when they get that pulse established and they can maintain it pretty secure and together, which shouldn't take too long, and it should be pretty fun. And then I'm going to say, you students, keep that up. And this is going to be represented with this wood block. This is going to be the students maintaining that beat, that pulse. And I'm going to demonstrate some rhythm, and it's going to be a little bit of a variety. So here's the underlying pulse. And I'm going to say, keep that going, students. And they're going to keep it up, and I'm going to play this rhythm, which is also on your handout on the Pong logo rhythm number 1. So here we go with 1, 2, ready, and the students are playing the pulse. I'll count myself in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what did I do that was different there? Well, you guys were playing the pulse, and I didn't detract from the pulse. I was with your pulse, but I was doing things in a different variety. I was playing some faster stuff, and some of my notes were faster than others, but I pretty much had a one-measure pattern, which we call that an ostinato. But my pattern was a little bit different than yours. You guys were just giving me the pulse, that beat. I could still do this when I'm playing my pattern, but mine had a little bit of variety to it, so that we call that a rhythm. And in order to express rhythm, we use durational symbols, and those are either our notes, which symbolize sounds, or rests, which symbolize silence. And each sound and rest is each different one, which I'm going to explain in detail in a little while as we get further along. But first I want to talk about tempo and the fastness and slowness of how the pulse is. Like if we want a really slow pulse, we're going to have a really like 1, 2, we're going to be really slow. So how do we measure that? Well, there was this gentleman named Johann Maelzel, and he invented a tool called the metronome. And he invented another interesting thing called the panharmonicon. And he had Beethoven actually compose a piece for this instrument, the panharmonicon, which could represent every sound of the orchestra. It must have been like what they were working on to get all that General MIDI today. It was what this was. I can only imagine it being very huge, and it was like the first computer was a very huge computer. Like this was the first instrument that could generate all these sounds the orchestra would make. So he had Beethoven compose a song for this instrument, and it was a very successful song. So a piece. And so then Beethoven wrote it again for orchestra, but then I think there was a legal dispute, because I think Maelzel had claimed that Beethoven gifted this to him, when in fact Beethoven did not gift the composition to him, and Beethoven fought for credit for this composition. But anyhow, Maelzel did invent the metronome, and he did advocate the use of it, and as any music teacher out there would tell you, definitely turn on your metronome, because this device will get you real. It'll make sure you don't speed up or slow down when you're learning pieces of music. And so it's a tool that we use to keep your time, to keep your tempo. And in your handout, you have a sheet that goes through all these metronome markings, or Maelzel's metronome is what that stands for. But that, when we use our quarter note, as we did in our pulse, that if we were considering 4/4 to be our time, we would consider that quarter note to be what we're going to use as our basis for our or our beats per minute. So if we are to play a grave tempo from the Italian, it's grave, it's the quarter note would equal 40. And that would look like this. And this could be on the whiteboard. Quarter note equals 40, grave, solemn, very slow. And what that would sound like on the metronome would be here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very, very, very slow. So this next tempo that we're going to talk about now is called adagio. Slow. It's still slow, but it's not quite as slow. Now the thing is, the last one we said that was quarter note equals 40, and that's in between 40 and 60. Like there's some give and take there, and so this could be adagio could be from 60 to 80. It's give or take. It's roughly in that neighborhood, and adagio stands for slow. So I'll give you an example of that with the metronome. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the thing is, if you don't use the metronome, how do you know how fast to take things? So it's a very important tool to kind of calibrate yourself with that time, so you keep yourself steady while you're reading these different durations. The next one I'm going to show you is andante, which is walking speed, and that will be quarter note 4 BPM equals 100. Andante, walking speed. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And this actually is the speed you would probably be most comfortable walking. A lot of marches will be about here because that is a comfortable speed to march at. 100, 110, 120. That's about what a good brisk march is. Now we're gonna move up to allegro, which is gonna be 160. So this is going to be quarter note equals 160, allegro, fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're gonna go quarter note equals 200, and this is vivace, lively. This is really, really, really fast. So here's 200. Beats per minute, or Malzel metronome marking, quarter note equal 200. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now that we have learned a little bit about different variety of tempos, how we can be either slow, largo, or vivace, super fast. We're going to do a little bit of a listening activity now, and we're going to listen to a number of tunes, and we're going to identify which we're going to choose a metronome marking. If you would like to try to get an exact number on it and put a quarter note equals, that's fine. But if you would like to use one of the language words, for any language that you want, like if you feel like it's very fast and you want to use allegro, that's fine. Fill in the blank with that. So our first example is the beginning few measures of Led Zeppelin's "When the Levee Breaks." And that is, we're going to try to see if we can recognize where the pulse is. The students can tap where it is, or they can, bob their head, or they can fill in the paper what tempo they feel, if they feel like it's largo, which it's not. But the next example is take 5, which is a good example. In 5, they'll still feel the steady pulse, but just to try to get them used to that 5 meter. And it's a little faster, so to see if they can, discern the difference between the 130 BPM, which is the Led Zeppelin tune, between the 160, that is the take 5. See if they can get it in the allegro range. It would be really cool. The next one is Gustav Holst's Mars, and that again, that's another one that's in it's in 5. Also has a grouplet of a triplet in there, which would be cool. See if they can pick that out, but just to get in that allegro range. Since I mentioned the march and being the next example, which will be example number 4, will be the Stars and Stripes Forever, and that is that clocks in at about 128. So see if they can recognize that as andante or and then the next example is going to be the Beethoven Piano Sonata in C minor, the second movement, Adagio Cantabile, but it's actually a lot slower to me than Adagio. So actually the quarter, very misleading. It doesn't feel like the quarter note's where it is in that piece, but I'm going to help him along with the music, and I'll conduct it in, and just to show him how slow that is. That's actually about the quarter note equals 32. And the last example is going to be Staying Alive. And that one I'm going to bring up the point that, when you're doing CPR, they recommend that you have that tune in your mind, because when you're doing the chest compressions, they recommend about 100 to 120 beats per minute. And that song is in that range. So if you're thinking about that song, Staying Alive, you're going to be able to do those compressions at the right speed, and hopefully save a life. What's funny is the song with a similar tempo is Another One Bites the Dust, so hopefully you don't want to go that route though. Now that we know how fast or how slow we're going to go, which is called tempo, now what we're going to do is we need to figure out how to put some of this variety in by using durational symbols such as notes or rests. So we're going to start with, we're going to refer you to the handout, and we're going to refer you to the rhythm tree, which is going to show, and I'm going to show you here on the whiteboard as well. Everything that's on the paper is going to be considered a whiteboard, which will be up for view at all times. Got any questions, just hit me up with one. I'm here to listen. Alright, so we start off at the top with our largest note. It's a whole note. And in common time, or 4/4 time, which is what we're in, our whole note is going to equal 4 beats. It's going to last 4 beats long. So as we go down the hierarchy, we further divide the notes. We get half notes. Now notice that the whole note here is a note head. It's unfilled, and there's no stem, and that's the largest note. When we go down to the next, this whole note can fit 2 half notes inside of it. 2 half notes. Each half note equals 2 beats apiece, so each of these will equal 4 beats as well. They're 2 apiece, so you can fit 2 half notes into one whole note. Each of those half notes can fit in 2 quarter notes. Each quarter note receiving 1 beat. It looks like that. And each of those quarter notes can fit 2 eighth notes. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, and I'm going to explain a few more things about these notes, okay? So the half notes, the note head is not filled in. When you get to the quarter notes, the note heads are filled in, and each of these quarter notes are equal to 1 beat. You can fit 2 quarter notes in every half note. Now, when we divide our quarter notes into eighth notes, now we have note heads, stems, and we have a 1 flag. Okay. Now, when we put 2 eighth notes together, we don't keep them flagged. We change the flags into a beam. Okay. Now, each eighth note in this configuration of 4/4 time, it's going to equal a half a beat apiece. So the last thing I want to show you about the subdivision of the notes, when we go from eighth notes, we further go down into 16th notes here. And in these beams, we have 2 beams now. From 1 beam to 2 beams. 16th notes equal quarter of a beat, so it takes 4 of them to equal 1 quarter note, or 4 of them to equal 2 eighth notes. As 1 eighth note will equal 2 16th notes. The rule of thumb is the bigger note, 2 of the littler ones that follow, 2 will fit into 1. The 16th note looks like this with 2 flags. It's got a note head, a stem, and 2 flags. So in order to demonstrate the rhythm tree, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play on a drum each line. I'm going to play it twice through just so you get an... I'm going to do it at, I think, 88 beats per minute. 88, I think that's a good one to go for. So, okay, so right now I'm going to play the whole note and then 2 measures of it. So 1, 2, 3. Here's what the whole note. 2, 3, 4. Down to the half note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. To the quarter note. Eighth note. 1, 2, 3. 16th note. You can hear as you get towards the 16th notes, the movement is much faster than that of the whole note. So as you go, when you start off with the whole note, the note is very slow. The duration is long. The notes, when you get to 16th notes, the notes are a lot faster and the duration is shorter. So that is the notes. Now let's talk about rests. Rests are silences. So when you see rest, you have to count them as silences. Again, we're going to use 4/4 time. And we're going to start with the whole rest. The whole rest looks like this. Okay? It looks like... Now here's the way I remember it, because it's kind of easy to confuse with a half rest. The whole rest is a line, and the whole is on the bottom. It's like if somebody was walking on top, and I always do this. If someone was walking on top, he could accidentally fall down the hole. So you know it's a whole rest, because the hole is on the bottom. And that whole rest means a silence for 4 beats if you're in 4/4 time. So what I said, you could further divide that in how many rests are going to equal a whole rest. How many can fit? The same rule applies as notes. If you can, the note below, if you have a whole note, the half note's right underneath. So if you have a half rest, how many can you fit? That's right, 2. You can fit 2 half rests, because each half rest is equal to 2 beats a piece. So everything has to equal up to 4 beats here at the end. Now the half rests, the dark square is on the top. And I've been told that, it sounds like, this is the way I remember it. It looks like a top hat. Hat sounds like half. So if it looks like a hat, use your mnemonic device, and half rest is 2 beats. The duration of it is 2 beats. The next rest is the quarter rest, which looks like a squiggly line. And each of those is equal 1 beat apiece. Used to be a joke I used to say to the elementary kids when I teach them. I say, I want you to play my favorite song. And I used to write this on the board. All right, ready? 1, 2, ready, go. And they'd be quiet. And say, we're going to repeat it over and over again. So 8th rests are equal to half a beat apiece. And they look like this. And we don't beam them together at all. And just use a quarter rest if you're going to beam 8th rests together. So 8th rests, half a beat apiece. And then, whoops. The 16th rests. And the 16th rest further, I mean, they equal a quarter beat apiece, so you need 4 of them to make 1/4 note, or 2 of them to make 1/8 note. So in order to make 4 beats, you need 16 altogether. Now, the thing that makes rhythm really cool is you can use a combination and a variety of different rests and notes to get different sounds. I mean, you can use a different combination of quarter notes, eighth notes, rests, and the sky's the limit. You get just amazing things that happen. So right now we're going to do a little activity. Okay, we're going to refer to our handout, and let's check that out right now. Let's explain the activity. Okay, so for this activity, we're going to match the durations that are in column A, and we're going to find one in column B that's got a similar duration. So what we got to do is we got to remember how much each of the durational symbols are worth. So we'll do the first one together, and I know it might be a little bit slow going and figuring them out, but I want you to try to do it by yourself. I'll come around the room and I'll see how you're doing, and I'll help you if you're getting stuck, but I really want you to think about this now. Number one, the thing we need to know is, I mean, what kind of note is it? That's right, it's a whole note. Okay, so how many beats is that whole note worth? And we're going to plug a number into it. Yes, 4 beats. So we're just going to, what I would suggest is jot down how many beats it is, so then you know when you're looking at column B, how many beats are there, how many beats are in the notes in column B. So let's look at those. So for column B, the first one, letter A, is a half note and a quarter note. And the half note is worth, 2 beats, plus the quarter note's worth 3 beats altogether, so it can't fit. That's 4, so it's not going to fit. So A is not our choice. Going down the line, B, we have a quarter note, which is worth 1, and a whole note, which is worth 4. That's 5 beats altogether, so that's over. We need 4. It's not 5. Letter C, we have 2 eighth notes. The eighth notes are worth how much, Jimmy? Yes, half a beat apiece. Good, you were really paying attention to that. So half a beat and half a beat is how much altogether? It's hard. We've got fractions here. Yes, 1. So no, this 4 does not equal 1, so that doesn't work. With letter D, we got a quarter note and an eighth note. The quarter note's worth what? Yes, plus, so it's 1.5 to both of those. Letter E, here we go. What's that? A half note's worth 2, plus another half note's worth 2. That's worth 4. So number 1 is E. Good, guys. All right, so I'm going to give you about, 2 to 4 minutes to get this worksheet done. It shouldn't take you too long. A little arithmetic. You'll figure it out, guys. Get going. All right, now we're going to get back together, and we're going to actually learn the pattern for pawn logo number 1. So what that pattern logo pattern number 1 looks like this. And I'm going to give you, this is going to be always on the whiteboard for you so you can see it. But I wrote some numbers here, and this helps me kind of sing along what's going on. It keeps me in place to know this. It could be a pretty tough rhythm, so I like to say 1, 2, and 3, 4 E and a 1, 2 and 3, 4 E and a 1, 2 and 3, 4 E and a 1, 2 and 3. Now the 1 and the 3 are going to be they're going to be low notes. Boom. And what we're going to do to get those low notes is we have to hit the drum on the center of the head and get this low note like this. So we're going to go 1, and then the 2 and on the 8th notes are going to go on the edge of the drum. And I'm having a hard time showing you the. All right, so you got to go 1 like this. 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 E and the 4 and is alternating right, left, 1, 2 and 3, 4 E and 1, 2 and. So once the students get secure with that, and we could do things where we have some students do the pulse and some students do the rhythm, and that is a rhythm using those different durations, using a combination of quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, and they're doing an ostinato pattern, and it's going to be now, and when I'm going to say that this is a one measure pattern. Well, what is a measure? A measure is a unit of time. It's a unit that we can fit certain amount of beats in, and then we have to go to a next measure. So what that, there's a place on your handout where it gives you a picture of a measure, and measures are separated by bar lines. There's a bar line in between every measure. So and in this particular piece we are in 4/4, so we have 4 beats per measure, bar line, another 4 beats, and that's in our organization system, so we can read the music, keep our time, and keep the music moving. Sort of like this is a measure 1, measure 2. This is what we'd call our time signature. So a time signature, it's how many beats get the measure. The top number is really, really important. It's how many beats get the measure. So we can only fit 4 beats in every measure. The bottom number is what note gets the beat. So in this case, it's a 4. So the quarter note, we have 4 quarter notes are going to take every measure. There's only 2 measures visible here. The Pon logo pattern is only 1 measure, but you can have as many measures as you want in the piece. Now let's talk about how we figure out what our meter is. Like when we have our time signature, that's what we refer to as our meter. So how do we figure that out? Well, in a duple meter, and we're only going to talk about simple meters because we don't have a lot of time today. You know, we got to keep to time. So a meter is we have a accented meter is like, so we call an accent a strong beat, and then sometimes, you know, the other beats are weak beats. So when we have duple meter, which is 2, a duple meter, you have a strong beat and a weak beat, and we're going to say that's going to be 2/4. Okay, so 2/4 will look like this, and the accent looks like this. This is an accent. So there's our strong beat, weak beat. 2 is the amount of beats, so we count that 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And this would be simple triple meter. We have a strong accented first beat, and then a weak beat and a weak beat. So it's strong, weak, weak, boom, dup, dup. 1, 2, 3. Strong, weak, weak. And on the bottom here we have simple quadruple, which is strong, weak, less strong, weak, strong, weak, less strong, weak, strong, weak, less strong, weak. 4/4, or is also known as common time, because probably, you know, most of the music that you're familiar with is in 4/4. Now these are accented, these are metric patterns, accented patterns. You know, it's kind of simple. You know, pretty much a lot of the music that we listen to is either in 2, in 3, or in 4. You know, marches a lot of times are in 2. A lot of times waltzes, you know, are in 3. And I'm going to give you some examples, some musical examples, so we can hear these different meters. So to give you a good example of the quarter note time and the simple quadruple meter, we're going to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and the music, there's a packet with all the music there. To give you an example of a waltz, a simple triple meter, we're going to do Home on the Range, which also has an anacrusis, which I will explain in a minute. Okay, so in all the simple meters, you have simple duple. So you have 2 beats per measure, 1, 2, 1, 2. Simple triple, you have 3 beats per measure, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or simple quadruple, you have 4 beats per measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you have this music example in your packet. This is Home on the Range. Now, what I wanted to talk about was the anacrusis, which in the Greek it means literally pushing up, pushing in. So this note, notice how we're in simple triple meter. We're in 3/4 time. So we need 3 beats for every measure. So this first measure, this little bit here, does not have 3 beats in it. So what we do is, if I was counting 1, 2, since it's a quarter note that's left, we're going to consider that the third beat, because it's only 1 beat long, and so we're going to push in on that third beat, the anticipation. So if I was a conductor conducting, the musician would come in on beat 3. So if I was conducting this, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Oh, give me a home. I'd have to come in on beat 3 here, not beat 1. Beat 3, 1, 2. Oh, give me a home. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1. So that's a little different. You have to get used to. A lot of music starts on the pickups. We call it a pickup note, or an anticipation, or an anacrusis. So now the last thing about time signature, because in these simple meters, and we're only concerned with simple meters today, because in another couple lessons we're going to get to compound meters. So that's coming up. So when we have music, we have, in order to express and read meter, we have to have a time signature. And I said that the number on the top is the number of beats per measure. Now the number on the bottom is the note that you have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a little table here, and this is also included in your packet, but it's so easy to print out, so I'm just going to write on the whiteboard and show you what this is. So in order to explain, the number on the top is always going to be how many beats per measure. So in simple duple, it's always going to be 2. It's either 2 half notes, 2 quarter notes, or 2 eighth notes, or 2 16th notes. I mean, you could keep going. You could possibly play music in 2 30-second notes time. I mean, anything can be the bottom number, but we're just going to keep it simple, guys. We can keep it simple. So 2 halves, you get 2 half notes. 2 quarter, the quarter note gets the note. So you get, so that the bottom is always the note. 2 eighth notes, so 2 eighth notes get the beat. 2 eighth, you can only fit 2 eighth notes per measure in that meter. So the same thing, simple triple, you can have 3 half time. 3 half notes are going to make the measure. And after you fill up that measure with 3 half notes, you have to put a bar line and fill up another measure. You have 3/4 time, 3 quarter notes. The number on the bottom is the quarter notes. Number on the top is how many beats per measure. So no matter if a conductor is conducting 3 half time, you're conducting 1, 2, 3. 1. If a conductor is conducting 3/4 time, he's still conducting, or she is still conducting 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. If you're conducting 3/8, you're still conducting 3. So simple quadruple, you have 4 half notes, 4 half time, 4/4 time, or common time, and that is sometimes you'll see it like this. You'll see this. Common time. You see a C, that stands for common time. Or 4/8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4/8 notes. So those are all your simple meters and your time signatures. The number on the top is your number of beats per measure. Number on the bottom is the note that gets the beat. The duration that gets the beat. So what I would like you guys to do right now is to just draw me up on your scratch paper there. I would like you to write me 1 measure of rhythm using a combination of whole notes, half notes, or actually no, don't use whole notes. Use a combination of quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes, and write similar to your Pon logo pattern number 1. Write a 1 measure ostinato using a combination of different rhythms. Go ahead and do that now with a combination, but you're in 4/4 time, so you can only fill up 4 beats. So you can't overfill, you can't underfill. You have to have 4 beats in using a combination of different notes, so different durations. So get that written and hand it in, and I'll check your work. And then at the next class, what we're going to do is we're going to actually play some of these rhythms on the drums that we've already, we're starting to do some drumming in here, so we're going to continue that with a lot of the rhythms that we're doing. So we're going to drum your own original compositions. We're going to drum your patterns that you write today, so go ahead and write those down now, and I'll collect them at the end. And also, I'm going to give you your homework as well. You're going to do the same thing, but a little longer of a composition with rhythm. You're going to write me a 4-measure rhythm using combinations, but this time you can use combinations of notes. Whole notes can be included this time, half notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, but also I would like you to include using some rests. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.